Hi, folks. I'm Joe Leslie of J&L Creative Solutions. Thank you for visiting us. For those who are seeing us for the first time, I appreciate your visit. For those who are coming back, again, I appreciate you even more for the enhanced value that you see. My guest today is...
I am Janice Debo, and I'm a personal development trainer, coach, and a published author.
Well, thank you, Janice, for being a part of our program today. For those who are new to us, the concept is, or the theme is, are you prepared to take the hot seat challenge to discover an ingredient of your secret sauce? And the concept there is that people can mimic or copy what you do, but they can't fake who you are. So my role is to discover, and again, when I say sauce, 30 minutes, we're talking salt and pepper in the water. We're not talking sage and cucumber or anything like that for a secret sauce concept. So there's a continuum of those that have interest. But that being said, without further ado, I'm going to ask you, Janice, what's your favorite pastime?
Writing probably would be at the top of the list.
Can I interrupt? Now, you may have been precocious, and I don't know you from today, but I'm assuming you weren't writing you were between 3 to 4 years of age, yes?
I don't think so. I did like to use the coloring books, though.
That's a start. And so the reason I'm doing this deliberately is I want to get a sense of you, the human being. And so what you were doing age of 3 to 5 to 7 may or may not be part of who you are today. Well, we're all part of who we are. Yeah. To give people kind of a more rounded image of you. So did you have a favorite pastime or activity when you say that 3 to 5 to 6 age group?
I like to play with paper dolls. I grew up, cutting out paper dolls and coloring them and changing their clothes, that type of thing. That's a big memory.
I get that. Now, also, I forgot to mention, folks, you'll see me looking down. I'm not falling asleep. I keep a board that I make notes on. I have a mind like a sieve. So at some point, I'll refer back to my notes in terms of my summary at the end of this package or this program. Now, when you say you like that, that's something I guess most young girls tend to like. That may be stereotypical. I have no idea. Was there a certain type of clothing? Random. I'm way ahead of myself. 3 to 5 years of age. Let's go to say 13 years of age. What was your favorite pastime then?
Let me give that a quick think. I believe at becoming a teenager and having moved around a lot, my favorite pastime would have been making new friends and developing relationships.
I get that. Did you have any sports that you were involved in?
I did not like team sports, and so I never gravitated to that particular interest at all.
I hear that. So we can scratch that one off the list of things to ask about. So at some point, so teenage years, classic, meet friends. Did you have friends that you liked more than other types of friends in terms of preference of persona you would interact with? Like a favorite friend?
Let's see, mostly girlfriends, and recently have reconnected with many high school friends. And I have been told by more than one of them that I was a lot of fun and I made people laugh. Okay.
I guess, and I hear that. I was asking, for example, my best friend was a guy that we played chess together. He taught me to play chess, and I taught him to ride a bike because he was the only child and his parents weren't involved in that. So we had a relationship of that common connectivity. So I was asking you along that line, perhaps.
Probably one of my best friends. We would hitch rides with my older brother, who would drive us to the downtown area, and we'd like to sneak into the clothing store and run around and giggle. It was more of we just loved running around, hanging out together. Nothing in particular as far as activities, just hanging out and being girls.
I get that. And so part of the fun of it was the issue, the risk of getting caught, the novelty of doing what you're doing together, sharing it. I get that totally concept. Okay, so let's go perhaps in your mid to late 20s. Were you busy with school, busy with work, busy with whatever you may have been doing?
I was branching into the sales arena at that age, I had been working at a clothing store. Then I was working at some other miscellaneous jobs as a young married woman.
Right.
And I took to sales by complete accident.
How's
And
that?
I worked with a group of salesmen that worked for a very large company. I was
Right.
their secretary. I think nowadays they're called something else. And
I think they're called executive assistants or something like that.
exactly. So this one gentleman, he saw my talent. He decided to take me under his wing. He says, "You need to be in sales. So let me give you some tips." But the funny story to that is the backstory is there was another salesman who said, "You don't take orders very well, and somebody's going to get in trouble because you don't know how to obey."
Oh my.
Yes. So I branched into sales by way of some training, and I had a very Southern accent, Joe, very Southern. And so
Okay.
his main goal was to help me drop the intensity of that, which he did.
Right.
And from there, the company that installed a new telephone system in our office hired me. And that
So,
became
so somebody came in to install a telephone system, connected with you, and hire you?
They did. They of course the interview process, but he was so impressed with me. He said, "Would you consider being in sales?" And that was the start.
Okay, so I lost track then. The sales program is not your current company you began as a secretary with. It was the hire out to the other company that was putting the phone system, and that's when you became the salesperson?
That's correct. Outside sales. And I have well over 20 years of sales and marketing background, which is very effective in what I do now.
I hear that. We'll get there in a moment, folks. I'm curious about why people do what they do, not so much for you, but the person that hired you. What was it about you that he thought would provide value in sales that your current company then was not seeing very well? Did he express to you why he hired you away?
As I recall, it was the outgoing personality. I didn't have any fear of talking to people.
Okay.
And making new friends and contacts and such. So I would probably summarize it in saying it was my outgoing personality to step out and make sales for him.
I get that. And that's important because if you're not inclined to want to engage with people, it could be a challenge to make the sale happen, I would think.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, that sales to me is intimidating. Rephrase that. People say if you're not selling, if you're not marketing, you're not doing anything at all, perhaps. So that I'm sure there's many phrases or variations of that. What was it that you enjoyed about sales? You alluded to that, but I'd like to dig more in that direction.
I love meeting people and having engaging conversations.
Right.
In addition, it was a challenge. I was put in a challenging situation to make a living.
Right.
Commission wasn't easy. And it really is the people that I engage with, not making the sale. And I'm sure we'll get further down that road. But I would say it's the people, the communication, the relationship.
I hear that. Interesting. So you say you've been in sales, you said 20 years, or was it, I don't recall.
Yes, I was in a variety of sales jobs over about 22 years, something like that.
Okay. Now, I have to assume, looking at you, that you grew up in a part of the country where they didn't have child labor laws. You could start out when you were 5 years of age or something.
Actually, the funny story behind that is I probably was selling something at 5 years old, even if it was just paper dolls. But it goes probably around 15. I got a worker's permit, and the store that my friend and I love to run in and out and giggle hired me. So I went into sales in it was a big department store at the time where I lived. Yeah.
It's interesting you made that notation. I was saying when I began this, I made notes, and I'm filling out maybe a good portion of the paper now. And I made an arrow from the point when you were saying as a young adult, a teenager, You enjoy sneaking into the stores and getting away with stuff, I guess, with anything else, along with the exploration. There were people, I'm assuming, might have thought about fearing about getting caught. Hey, a challenge. I think we can get away with this. And when you refer back to that just now, to that same store environment, in terms of being an outgoing personality, no fear of interacting. I mean, I hear the story about being a teenager. To do what you did was fearless, something I was not up to. Still at my stage of life, I'll say it like that. Oh my gosh, what if I get embarrassed? What if I get caught? And I think that's perhaps the heightened excitement of what you were doing. It was something, to put it differently, it was an area that you could be someplace different, not having traveled to Europe or South America or anything like that, to explore and engage you with the world around you and enjoy common interaction, a common fellowship. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. Having grown up, I was a preacher's kid and we moved a lot.
Okay.
And even though it was part of my natural persona, I probably enhanced my skills of relational communication by necessity, even though I was good at it. It was a necessity to either be a hermit or to get out and make friends.
I hear that. So part of I'm hearing a major part of who you are. First, you were born the way you are born historically, but you made use, or you took advantage, or you adapted, or you grew because of the moving around, as you say, a lot. I get the emphasis on that totally. And so to be able to interact, it was important to be outgoing. It was important to be exploratory. You're always in a different environment by nature of the frequent moves, if I'm hearing that correctly. School systems, the people in class, the way to school, the walk. We didn't have busing back before whatever date, so if it was more than 5 blocks, you had to walk that 5 blocks, pretty much, I would think. And because you were moving, and I'm sharing with you my thoughts so far, because you were moving around, as you said, a lot, to be a part of the new environment, people could react by one of two extremes: to recede within themselves or to engage, to communicate. And you alluded to that you had to communicate in a very proactive manner to get some sense of where you are. Is that a fair observation?
Oh, absolutely. And being a preacher's kid too, and living in the South, which I did, tended to get picked on. And I think that my personality probably lended itself to, making friends of the people that thought it was fun to laugh at preacher's kids.
Interesting.
So I made them laugh.
Fair enough. You made the most of what you had to work with. And rephrase that. People could see it as an obstacle, your challenges, or you saw it as a challenge and not obstacles. And this is not about me, but for example, I hate exercising. And when people are exercising on TV smiling, what are they smiling about? But I know they're supposed to be releasing endorphins, a collective whatever. No. None of that works for me. But if I want to be a hunk, I got to exercise. And that's the way I look at it. And so you decided to be a hunk in your world, using the male gender, by exercising your skills of interacting, exercising your skills of communicating, of dialogue. And how much you may or may not have been already outgoing is a skill that enhanced where you are and what you're doing. And that's what I'm seeing in dialogue. So that being said, and I look at my clocks, I want to keep track of where I am. But folks, instead of putting a sheet of paper, I've almost put up the whole sheet. I have no more space here, kind of. So it's now time to start talking about who you are, the person. Before we do that, commercial break. This environment is listed out to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. There is in the YouTube section a description of Janice and of myself, with links to websites, to communication contacts. And for those of you who are watching and at some point appreciate better, and again, I say secret sauce, it's just an ingredient of salt and pepper, not the whole sage and cumin and whatnot, feel free to reach out to her. If you find that what she talks about fits your sense of what you like for your particular need at the moment. From my perspective, I also offer my contact information. Please reach out if you have questions to either of us. We do audit your comments. We respond back to them. And share us with your audience, your friends, your associates. And if you'd like to be a part of my program, feel free to respond to that also. So having done the commercial break, I'm going to ask you, what got you in the path to what you're doing now?
That's kind of a long story, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible.
Fair enough.
I was in sales and marketing for all those years. And then I had a 5-year trek with a retirement home. That was probably one of the most fun things I'd ever done to date. Then I moved from North Carolina to attend school in Colorado and planned to stay there. However, I met my former husband, and I'd never heard of the area I live in now, and he had a home here, so this is where I landed.
Okay.
With my background, we decided that owning a little business would be really beneficial, and bought an online store. And I spent about 8 years making that very profitable and productive. From there, and I saw what that put me out in this community, and I started making lots and lots of connections.
Okay.
And from one of those connections, I met with a gentleman, endeavoring to sell him on what I was doing at the time. And he was a coach, and he developed websites. And
yes.
And since I was doing all this connecting, Joe, he said, "Why don't you do why don't you get paid for what you really do?"
Okay.
And I was a deer in the headlights, and I just looked at him and said, "Nobody's going to pay for that." And as it turned out, he helped me get started about 7.5 years ago.
Right.
And from there, I've gone into coaching. I have kind of morphed or developed into what I'm doing now, where I started out as primarily training people to network and sales.
Right.
And now it's really become my strength of training in personal development and training and coaching. And what I do is I really lead with the communication that people need, and then I can move into sales marketing. I customize what I do, and so I by default, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, right place, right time, and he kick-started the whole thing for me, and I just stayed and kept going.
I see that. I would say this differently, and I wasn't there, of course, but rather than say he started the whole thing for you, he was the catalyst. And let me backtrack on that. And again, make notes. I had a little bit of space at the very bottom here that I cheated on. So having said that, the continuum you talked about when you were working with your first, I'm assuming first company as a young adult, somebody came along and discovered you and took you out of that by offering you an option in another direction. You married your first husband. In a sense, he discovered you. He suggested something happened because of that. And I'm saying these bullet points here, but then to bring it together. And ultimately, you got in a position that somebody else came along. Why you're not getting paid for this? Discovered you and suggested you do something else. So the pattern I see here, there's a consistent observation of people who see value in you beyond where you are at the moment. And as a result, it's not that they got you into it. They want to take advantage of your skill. They want to hop on board. And so you're doing something. You mentioned coaching. Rephrase that. Anybody can take a course in coaching and or consulting or get degrees, certifications, however that works. But what I'm seeing here is a person, it's a legacy. It's a lifetime experience. It's a legacy that growing in an environment that you had challenges, perhaps as much as anybody might have. And rather than become victimized to it, and you alluded to that being from the South and a preacher's daughter, you became stronger because of it. And you sharpened your skills of communicating, of interacting, of being able to bring value enough to your environment that people who become a part of it, they also gain value from you. And that's these people invited you to work for them, work with them, not looking to waste money. They're looking to get ahead themselves. And isn't that what coaching does? You help people get ahead of where they are in their business of sorts. And so that's the continuum that I see here, that for you, I would be much more proactive of philosophy about who you are, the person, rather than people sucked me into this by happenstance. No, 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 no. You have a value that people see in you. You each time you touch something, you bring improvement to it, that other people will say, hey, I want you to be a part of where I am. So I want to make myself better. I want to make my business better. And I find that intriguing. I find that interesting. What are your thoughts on that? I've been ramming quite a bit on this.
I really like the thread that follows my life. I had not put that together to the
Okay.
extent of, but it follows a pattern in so many areas, but especially in what I'm doing now. How I got here was letting other people see me and see who I really am,
Right.
and allow them to kind of help me steer that ship, especially in the early years.
Right.
But I'm a rebel at heart, and in a lot of cases, I did, just fight things, but not in these cases where they've had significant impact, as you were talking
Mm-hmm.
about.
Right.
But I'm seeing the pattern now. Thank you, Joe.
Well, thank you. Well, that was part of my comment. You made the statement that they kind of pulled you in and doing you a favor. No, they were doing themselves a favor. So
Yeah.
my role again is I see things, I connect the dots well. And I believe everybody has a unique value about themselves. And why is this important? Again, anybody can lay claim to what you do. They can mimic how you do it of sorts. They've taken the courses, the degrees. But what I see here, and by the way, I think many consumers, unless you're AT&T kind of marketing budget, we can barely hang on at times to what we have to do for our business momentum. And people will resist making choices for needed services because they're afraid they'll waste the money or blow it. But what I see in you is somebody that you grew up this way. Because of who you are, you grew up. You've developed and enhanced skills that not through your determined focus per se to make something happen, you're making your world work well for you. And people around you see where it works also well for them. And I think part of your secret ingredient sauce is a person that has unique skill, who is outgoing, who will see challenges not as something to hide from, but hey, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And you're good enough at it that the people who interact with you want to benefit more by it also. That's how I see it as you're being a coach. So it's now, is it a pure coach, or I'm hearing something intermingled with that also?
I had called myself different things over the years since I've been doing this.
Right.
And business consultant, networking coach, and then I forget what was in between. However, when I really started thinking about what I do, how I do it, and this has been this year, I rebranded
Okay.
to be a person to do, instead of to be something, I focus on what I do. And I say I do personal development training and coaching, and I coach other writers as well, in essence. And as far as degrees and things like that you mentioned, I frankly, everything that I have to give has come from experience and
Fair.
a lot of learning. So, being a coach is a portion of what I do. A lot of times it's consulting if the person needs it, if they
Mm-hmm.
need business consulting or if they need life coaching, it all blends together.
I hear that. And quite frankly, people may have degrees that imply knowledge, perhaps not necessarily skill, and certainly not necessarily wisdom. So you've lived a life of it and you have a perspective. And again, what's unique for you? For those that like to see 10,000 degrees behind somebody's name, that's not who you're looking for, as I would see it. And these are people who would not benefit with the skills that you bring to the table. So some people might even say, well, gee, she's all over the place. But no, I see it differently, that you're like a sponge that absorbs stuff and pulls it together very nicely. And as a result of that, and you've always lived in an environment where it was different, where it was varied, where it was challenging, threatening, call it what you want. and you've gotten better at what you do, and you bring those skills to the table for where you're going now with it. And so I don't think it's so much a matter of changing your direction. I think it's still a continual metamorphosis. I'll say it like that. Um, and your development enhances or increases as you go on. Because I think, let me phrase that. There's a cartoon characters, the Linus, the and Peanuts, the blanket, and things were floating around. And I think you have this aura about you. You have this galaxy that things float around you that you can provide value to other people. That's how I see it. Any thoughts on what I've been rambling about here?
That is great. I love those cartoons in particular. Linus is just something else. I I've had a lot of people attracted to me, and I never understood why.
Okay.
So I stopped trying to understand why, and I allow people into my life that I feel are worth. I don't want to say worthy. That sounds kind of haughty, but there's people you don't want to allow in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's something I've learned to really follow. I have a very strong intuition,
Okay.
and just listen to what I need to hear and who I need to be connected with. Um, it seems to be, again, a life pattern, even though I've had a lot of things and people in my life that are no longer in my life. But as we grow, things change.
Right. And you just said a comment, things change as we grow. And I just wrote down the word that you're observant. And that's back to the sponge concept again, that you have a high degree of awareness, likely a lot of it subconscious, and you have a better sense of most people I've had dialogue with of your value. And some people worry about losing somebody. How come they're not interested? How come they dropped out of my email that I'm doing on a weekly basis? You'll say thank you very much because I need to move on. I mean, that's what I'm hearing here. And so people who want to keep up to your momentum, and you've had to be aware, you've had to be, because you've had so many different challenges that they can either overwhelm you or make you a stronger person. And again, I'm not here to psychoanalyze, but that's where I'm seeing part of the secret sauce is that for people who appreciate the value of somebody who's adaptive, who has been through your own, talk to you in second person, not third person, your own challenges of enhanced value as a result of that. You can share that skill, and you alluded to that, share that skill, that knowledge, that wisdom with your clients. So it's like people can't say, well, you've never been through my life. You've never been through my challenges. You can't, how do you know to help me? Well, no, but I understand the continuum of challenges and obstacles and things out there. That's kind of what I'm reading here of how you go about and you may not do this consciously, but that's my timer on that. Sorry for that. That's what I'm seeing. Good, better, and different. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, that's very true. I find myself in a position of attracting people. The people that come to me have been the best clients. The people I
Okay.
have gone after have not.
Well, see, I'm going to interrupt. People who come to you are your best clients. Now, intuitively understand that, but it's like I might think, and I'm not being derogatory, but people who laugh at my jokes, they're good people. They're smart people. So I'm kind of teasing you about that concept, but I also respect that because you have a sense of your identity, and for prospects that they can rely on the fact that if you feel it's not a good match, you'll likely walk away from it. And as a result, you're not going to waste their money or your time for a bad mix.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so and we try to stay in the clock here, folks. This was really a fun conversation. I hope it's like this should be one of those things. Who shot JR? That will come back in the fall and we'll finish off the story.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Right. So this is very, very nice. I appreciate you being a part of this program. Folks, remember to leave your comments, to share, to reach out to Janice, reach out to me. You make comment, we'll audit, we'll share back, and we'll be doing this again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This has been great.
It was
Great.
fun.